ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WABC.
Local Spotlight.
Good morrow, everyone. This is The Other Side of Midnight on 77 WABC. I'm Frank Morano, and the weekend is here. It's Friday. You know what that means. Not only TGIF, thank God it's Friday, but thank God it's Frank, and that means you get to ask Frank anything for the next hour. I will tackle your questions on any subject. Just give me a call at 1-646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. It also strikes me that this is the last shopping weekend, the last weekend, period, before Christmas and Hanukkah to get all your shopping done. So if you have not yet done so, like me, and you procrastinated, this is the weekend to do it. And I have the perfect suggestion for the Other Side of Midnight fan on your list. I think if you know someone that listens to this show, they would absolutely love something from the Other Side of Midnight online store. So I would encourage you to check out WABCRadiostore.com. That's WABCRadiostore.com. Click on personalities, then click on me, Frank Morano, and there is a ton of great stuff on there. There's shirts, there's mugs, there's jackets, there's blankets, there's a lot of great merchandise if you're a fan of this show. And I've been trying, and by the way, whatever you purchase, if you use the promo code Frank15, you will save 15% off. Now, if you are someone that wants to see new stuff on there, as I do, the best way to do that is to order some of the old stuff, because I have been urging the folks that run the online store to put in some new designs for some new material, but I think I'll have a much stronger moral high ground if people order some of the stuff that's already on there. So go to WABCRadiostore.com and use the promo code Frank15, and you could use that promo code not just for my stuff, but for stuff that any of the other personalities have branded with their logo or their name on it as well. All right. A lot to get to, and believe you me, we will. Meantime, I also saw a humpback whale washed ashore on Long Island, the 11th this season. I don't know what this is all about. I really don't. There's speculation that it had to do with the preliminary groundwork for offshore wind development or something along those lines. I don't know if it's true, but something's going on here, and we've got to get to the bottom of what's going on with these whales and these dolphins washing up on the beach all over our region. All right, let me hear your question. 646-720-0635.
Beam me up!
To be continued.
Impact confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
Demonic threat level increasing.
Hold the line!
All the power of hell cowering before one man.
id Software presents Doom, The Dark Ages. Available now on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC.
Rated M for mature.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WABC.
Local Spotlight.
Good morrow, everyone. This is The Other Side of Midnight on 77 WABC. I'm Frank Morano. It's interesting, isn't it? Just a few years ago, then Governor David Paterson was raked over the coals for attending a Yankees World Series game with a $600 ticket. He faced relentless scrutiny, not just for the price of the ticket, but for the optics of a sitting governor enjoying America's pastimes in the stands. It became a public spectacle, a feeding frenzy over what was, frankly, a fairly fairly minor indulgence and really a meaningless scandal that I think in part was driven by Andrew Cuomo, but that's a different story for another day. Fast forward to now, and we see an entirely different playbook. Over the weekend, last weekend, photos were splashed all over social media showing Governor Kathy Hochul, Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins, and Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie attending a Buffalo Bills game. But these weren't just ordinary tickets. No, they were in a luxury suite, enjoying the game from the kind of perch most taxpayers could only dream of. And here's where it gets particularly noteworthy. This isn't just any football game. It's the Bills, the team for whom Governor Hochul, along with her partners in government, Speaker Hastie and Senator Stewart-Cousins, pushed through one of the most lucrative taxpayer-funded stadium deals in recent memory. Let's not forget, this deal puts New York taxpayers on the hook for $850 million, the largest public subsidy for an NFL stadium in U.S. history. Now, the photos from the luxury box don't show taxpayers struggling to make ends meet or Bills fans debating whether that stadium deal was a good idea. Instead, they show three of the most powerful people in the state, leaders who signed off on that massive deal, living it up. Anybody want to guess at who paid for that? I'm betting none of the three of them reached into their own pocket. Where's the outrage? Why isn't this making headlines the way David Patterson's Yankees ticket did? Have we just grown numb to the double standard, or are we looking the other way because the power players involved have done a better job of spinning their narrative? Let me be clear. It's not the fact they went to a game that's the issue. It's the context. When you're asking taxpayers to fork over nearly $1 billion for the stadium and then you show up to that same team's game in a luxury suite, it sends a message. And that message isn't about accountability or stewardship of public funds. It's about privilege. The next time you hear about budget shortfalls or funding cuts, remember those photos. Because if nothing else, they're a stark reminder of who's really calling the plays and who's left sitting in the bleachers. I think it's great that they want to support the Bills, but do they have to use our money to do it while they're yucking it up in a luxury suite? I don't think so.
Beam me up!
To be continued.
This episode is brought to you by Principles. Are there limits to the U.S. government's debt growth? What will happen if the debts are not curtailed? What should policymakers or investors do? Those are urgent questions that legendary investor and New York Times bestselling author Ray Dalio addresses in his new book, How Countries Go Broke: The Big Cycle. The book comes out in June and is available for pre-order today, wherever books are sold.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WBC.
Local Spotlight.
New Jersey lawmakers are rolling the dice on a controversial new bill, one that would decriminalize gambling for people under the age of 21. Under this proposal, underage gambling would no longer be treated as a disorderly persons offense. Instead, it would be downgraded to a civil matter, punishable by a fine, $500 for the first offense, $1,000 for the second, and $2,000 for any subsequent offenses. The money raised through these fines would go towards education and treatment programs for compulsive gambling. That sounds like a thoughtful way to address problem gambling, right? Maybe. But I'm not so sure this is the best move for public policy. Let me be clear. I don't think every 20-year-old who sneaks into a casino should be locked up. When I was a teenager, I would have loved the idea of leniency as well. And look, I spent some time in casinos before I was old enough to do so, and I wouldn't want people arresting me. But as an adult, I question whether removing the threat of criminal prosecution is the right message to send. Here's the problem. Gambling is addictive. It's a high-stakes activity that can spiral out of control quickly, especially for young people who might not yet grasp the consequences. Studies already show a rise in youth gambling, particularly with the explosive growth of sports betting. If we soften the penalties, what's to stop more minors from testing the waters? Think about it. A fine, even one as high as $2,000, isn't much of a deterrent if you're already walking into a casino or placing bets online with the thrill of hitting it big. And in many cases, who's really paying that fine? Is it the young gambler or their parents? Without real accountability, like mandatory education or intervention programs, this This just feels like a slap on the wrist. Assemblyman Don Guardian, a very close friend of mine, regular guest on this show, a Republican who initially opposed the bill, said he changed his mind because the fines will fund gambling treatment programs. That's a step in the right direction. But is it enough? The Council on Compulsive Gambling of New Jersey doesn't think so. They've argued that fines alone won't cut it. They're calling for mandatory education about the risks of gambling to be added to the bill, and I agree. Look, we all know gambling is big business in New Jersey, from casinos in Atlantic City to mobile sports betting apps. It's woven into the state's economy. But we have to ask ourselves, are we creating a culture where gambling is just another harmless pastime, even for minors? I fear that we might be. If we're serious about preventing problem gambling, we need more than fines. We need education. We need outreach. And yes, we need consequences that make young people think twice before they roll the dice. And those consequences may have to include the threat of criminal prosecution.
Beam me up!
To be continued.
That moment when you realize your skincare is actually working. That's Rodan & Fields, the #1 female dermatologist-founded skincare brand in the U.S. Designed by 2 dermatologists who don't just know women's skin, they know how to formulate for it. Rodan & Fields, love what you see. Tap the banner or visit rodanandfields.com/Spotify to get your exclusive welcome offer.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WABC.
Local Spotlight.
Yesterday, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg announced the indictment of Ingrid Lewis-Martin, a former top aide to Mayor Eric Adams. Lewis-Martin is accused of engaging in a long-running bribery scheme, allegedly accepting over $100,000 in cash and benefits in exchange for influence over city decisions, specifically helping developers expedite permits and assisting her son's business ventures. The charges include bribery, money laundering, and conspiracy. According to the DA's office, Lewis-Martin used her position as a trusted advisor to the mayor to sell her influence in City Hall. It's a classic quid pro quo scenario, according to Alvin Bragg. Her son, Glenn Martin II, allegedly benefited from these transactions, purchasing a Porsche and receiving help setting up a Chick-fil-A franchise. Lewis-Martin has pled not guilty, with her attorney, Arthur Aidala, calling the charges nonsensical and stating,
"This is a political case. This is a witch hunt type of a case. I don't know if they're trying to get Eric Adams. Ingrid Lewis-Martin has nothing bad to say about Eric Adams. So if they think this is a way to get to him, they are absolutely wrong. But the facts of this case make no sense to New Yorkers."
Now let's get to the heart of the issue, the definition of bribery. Under the Supreme Court's standard, for something to be considered bribery, there must be a clear exchange of money or benefits for official action. The prosecution's case hinges on the idea that Lewis-Martin sold her influence. But there's a significant gap in how they've defined the exchange here. The money allegedly went into a joint account with her son, and some of it was used for personal purchases, like a car. But this doesn't hold up under scrutiny. If you apply the Supreme Court's definition of bribery to this, there's no way this charge sticks. If the courts allow this case to be labeled as bribery, it sets a dangerous precedent, potentially opening the door for anyone in power to be charged with bribery for any vague financial transaction that could be loosely tied to a favorable action. Now, I'm not sure if Ingrid Lewis-Martin will beat this case at trial, but I'll tell you this, there is no way this conviction gets upheld upon appeal. A conviction like this could have far-reaching consequences, threatening to redefine the very essence of bribery in this country. In the end, the definition of bribery should be precise, clear, and based on actual explicit exchange. Without that, we risk undermining a legal standard that protects against real corruption. This case is far from over, and it'll be very interesting to see where it leads.
Beam me up!
To be continued.
This country was built on a distinctly American work ethic, but today, work is in trouble. We've outsourced most of our manufacturing to other countries, And with that, we sent away good jobs and diminished our capability to make things. American Giant is a clothing company that's pushing back against this tide. They make a variety of high-quality clothing and activewear, like sweatshirts, jeans, dresses, jackets, and so much more. All made right here in the USA, from growing the cotton and adding the final touches. So when you buy American Giant, you create jobs for seamsters, cutters, and factory workers in towns and cities across the United States. And it's about more than an income. Jobs bring pride, purpose. They stitch people together. If all that sounds good to you, visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order when you use code STAPLE20 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com with promo code STAPLE20.